March 4th, 2023. You guessed it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Stop right now and hit the subscribe button. And if you're not going to subscribe, don't even bother watching the video. Something prepper channels are forgetting to tell a lot of people. I guess they think most people know this, but we're going to get it out there. We hear all the time on prepper channels that how they want to live comfortably during SHTF, that they've got X amount of fuel storage, X amount of propane storage. All right, what do you do when that runs out? Because eventually that's going to run out, right? Let's say you got 100 gallons of gasoline stored for your tillers, your tractors, your diesel for your tractors, all that kind of stuff. What are you going to do when you run out in the next season? It's planting season, right? Guess what? You got to get out there with hand tools to plant a garden. It's pretty hard doing that. Last year, we planted a little 1/4 acre, and we turned it with a shovel, a grub hoe, a hoe, and rakes. That's how we turned it. And let me tell you, it was some work. We wanted to see how hard it would be. Now, this is just a little 1/4 acre. It took some time. It took about a week to get it turned, chopped up, and everything, get it ready to plant in. Tillers, tractors, all these things are great, right? They make the job easier. They make it go by quicker. You just crank the thing, walk behind the tiller, and it tills up your garden spot. But you got to stop and think. SHTF, you don't have no fuel. You've had fuel for 2 years, right? Well, this year you're out. You got to get out there with hand tools and do the work. You will be surprised of how many people don't even know how to sharpen a chainsaw. I see people sharpen chainsaws now. They got these big fancy rigs with all kind of stuff on it, and I'm over there with a round file and a flat file sharpening a chainsaw. A lot of people don't know how to even sharpen their tools that they own. Chainsaws, another example of this. Last year, a buddy needed to borrow a chainsaw. I cranked mine up, showed him how to crank it, gave it to him. He walked over to his truck and decided he was going to try to crank it, and he flooded it. Well, he couldn't get it cranked. He walked back over. He said, I can't crank it. It's not running right. I can't crank it. So what I do, pop cover off, take spark plug out, pull the rope a couple times, put spark plug back in, put the boot back on, put the cover on, fire up saw. He'd never seen anything done like that. He was never taught how to do that. That's things you need to start learning now. You need to learn maintenance on equipment. Whatever equipment you have, you need to learn how to rebuild the carburetor maybe, or at least clean the carburetor. You need to learn how to change the oil in the equipment. But the big thing is you need to learn how to use hand tools, because eventually you're going to go back to hand tools. A lot of these channels forget to tell you that. You hear it all the time, plant a garden, plant a garden, plant a garden. You're not going to be able to run down here to Ace or Lowe's or any of them places and get a bag of dirt and start, planting, right? You're not going to be able to. We're talking full-blown SHTF. What you have is what you have, and what you have as far as fuel and stuff like that has ran out. You're not going to have an indefinite supply of fuel. Yeah, you can make stuff, technically on a steel that can maybe run your equipment a little bit, but the average person eventually is going to run out of fuel. How many times do we see homesteaders or preppers that have solar systems and they're always having problems with it, right? What are they doing to keep their batteries charged? They're running generators to keep their batteries charged. Eventually you're going to run out of everything. One day you're going to wake up, your batteries on your solar system, something's going to happen to them. They're not going to work. Your charge controller is going to quit working. You've done used up all your extra parts to keep this thing working, and you're back to primitive days, right? The easy living as far as SHTF, and you still have power, you still have fuel. That's going to be gone eventually, right? You're going to be back to hand tools and doing things by hand. And I'm telling you, turning a garden spot by hand is hard work. Some people say, well, I'll have horses or this or that. That's awesome. But are you going to have enough feed to feed your animals? That's another thing we've talked about before. You see these homesteads on here that has animals everywhere, right? They supplement their feed by buying it from a feed and seed or a tractor supply or something like that. Full-blown SHTF, you need to have enough room on your property and enough stuff planted that you can take care of your livestock without having to depend on supplemental feed, right? A lot of people don't think that far enough ahead. They say, well, I've got X amount stored up. That's awesome. That's awesome. Full-blown SHTF, a couple years down the road, that's gone. You have to, what you grow is what you have. And it's going to get back to the hand tool days. I mean, you see it all the time on YouTube, right? You can type anything you want to do and learn how to do something, or get an idea how to do it. You try it, see if it works, and make it work the way you need it to work, right? It's a lot of people, I've said this before, think SHTF, I'm set, I'm ready. I've got a year and a half worth of fuel. I've got 3 years of propane stored up. I've got this stored up. I've got my solar system. I've got my filters. Eventually, that if SHTF happens and everything stops, eventually you're going to run out of that stuff. Yeah, you'll live high on the hog for a couple of years, right? But that next planting season, you go out there and I got to put some gas in my tiller, or I need to put some fuel in my tractor. I'm out. What are you going to do then, right? Old days, they would use horse, mules, oxen, whatever they could to plow gardens. But we've come a long ways from that. That is something, even if you went and got stuff today and you tried it, it takes a while to learn how to do it with those type of animals, not to mention the equipment it takes to do with the animals, as far as the plows and all that. Everybody thinks it's just going to be so easy. You know, you're going to be the hero, the movie star. It's not going to happen like that. I've said that before. It's just not going to happen. Eventually, you will run out of something. Doesn't matter. Food-wise, you can prep up and have, 20 years worth of food. That's awesome. But you still need to know how to plant and grow stuff. You still need to know how to take care of the equipment you have. You can't depend on every time something happens, I'm going to go out here and fire this up or fire that up and get to work, right? Because let's say year 3 or 4, fuel's gone. You have no fuel. And what about the people that's running these solar systems and they're having issues where, technically it takes a while to learn a solar system unless you're into it and you know everything about it now. If we have a solar system, I wouldn't personally depend on it for years and years of service without anything happening. Would not depend on that. That's just not the way it is. It's not. Your batteries, I've always said this before, a solar system, your panels and stuff, somewhat reasonable, somewhat cheap. Your batteries are where the cost is, and the issue with the batteries is eventually they're going to quit. You're going to run through all their cycles. The batteries are the most expensive thing on a solar system. To me, they are. They may not be to somebody else. I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, I can get batteries over here for this or that. But that's your cost in a solar system. If you got a chainsaw, do you know how to file the chain? Right? If you're sitting there sawing and the thing's bogging or just throwing like sawdust out, you need to sharpen your chain. You need to adjust your carburetor a little bit. You might even need to clean your carburetor. You need to clean your filters. There's all this stuff you got to think ahead of, and then eventually realize, hey, one day I'm going to be out here sawing, a tree down with an old handsaw to get firewood. That's eventually the way it's going to go if everything full-blown SHTF, there's no stores, there's no nothing. You have what you have, and eventually that's going to run out. Food-wise, you can prep yourself pretty well on food to last you, as long as you don't get raided or some kind of disaster happens, and you lose your preps. That's a huge issue. As far as planting and growing season coming up now, I recommend if you've got a little spot out there and you're healthy enough, you don't have heart problems or anything like that, go out there and just mark you off an area. Go out there with a shovel and a grub hoe and things like that and try to turn the dirt. It takes a while. It's not a tiller. It's not a tractor. We did it last year. We had pretty good success in what we grew in that area compared to what we tilled. Kind of strange, right? But we did. We didn't have much water problems and things like that in that part of in our garden. But guys, eventually, we're going to go back to hand tools. Like straight up hand tools. You even need to really know how to make handles for them, because you're going to break your handles for your shovels, your grub hoes, all axes, all that. Or buy up some to keep, because eventually, full-blown SHTF, living comfortably, thriving and striving, it's going to go away, and you're going to just be every day trying to get by. It's just the way it is. You can't prep up enough as far as comfort items to last 20, 30 years. I don't personally think you can. Food-wise, yes, as long as you avoid some kind of disaster where that stuff gets damaged, you lose it, fire, some tornado, anything like that. You need to know how to garden, and you need to know how to garden the old way. If you've got animals or whatever, sorry about that, kids are out running up and down on four-wheeler. If you have to worry about that kind of stuff, guys, it's just the way it is. It's the way it's going to be. Stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings at all times, protect yourself and your family at all times. You're not safe anywhere. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. We're still trying to grow the channel. We're growing slowly. It's the best we can do right now. We just haven't had a video to hit. I watched channel a couple days ago. They started about the same time as I did, and they've been struggling and struggling and struggling. And they had a video hit that got 700,000 views, and that now within 3 or 4 days they got 100,000 subscribers. That's how that works. You know, you got to have a video to hit, and we just haven't had one yet. But thank you to everyone who is subscribed. Stay safe out there, get prepped up, and learn how to use hand tools, and learn how to take care of the tools you do have now. You know, sharpen a chainsaw. You don't need all this fancy stuff. Get you a flat file and a round file, and learn. You might damage a chain or two learning, but eventually you'll get it right. Stay safe, get prepped up.